sorry, I've been a little feeling like shit lately.
No, you're good.
Travel.
Let's talk about how Mark feels like shit
let's
today.
talk about how I feel like shit.
Yeah, Mark.
Travel is great until you eat something that makes you feel like your stomach's turned into 19 different circles, and then you feel like shit.
Little airport sushi?
No, it was some, I don't know, some etouffee or something in Austin that did not sit well. It was great when I had it, but the long run was not something good, and we'll leave it at that. So since we're under public consumption here, we'll just leave it that wasn't feeling so hot. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Does it make you feel depressed, Mark?
No, it made me feel like I didn't want to get on my next plane, which was going to Phoenix, where it was 114 degrees, because there's nothing like really super hot combined with feeling really super shitty. And so it was great. And so now we're here today, back in Albuquerque.
Where it's super hot still?
Where it's still super hot, where it's 103 and, feeling slightly less shitty. So.
And we're not by a beach like Elise.
Yeah.
Lucky
exactly.
her.
No, Albuquerque's got a lot of beach. It just doesn't have any ocean. Tons of sand, just no ocean. So, anyway, so creativity and hobbies. What does that mean? What does that mean to you, Elise?
Well, I like creativity and depression. I think that sounds like a great topic to me.
Creativity
because
and depression combined?
Depressed creativity.
Because I feel like using creativity is a great,
antidote?
Creativity is like a strength. It can be like something somebody already has, that helps them get through life. And then I think it can also be like a skill too, like the more you engage with it, like the easier it is to use for different situations. And I feel like when I'm feeling depressed, I definitely feel a huge lack of creativity. And like my thoughts when I'm depressed are very stuck. They're very stagnant. They aren't creative. They don't, like, my mind is not in the space to like problem solve or be open-minded or like brainstorm new solutions. It's just like, I feel like shit, and this is the way it is, and it's never going to change, and I'm not going to do anything to change it, and this is life, and I'm stuck.
Yeah, and there's a piece, like, a lot of people that I know that are early in recovery used to be creative, or they thought that was the catalyst to their creativity.
Yeah.
I need to drink a little, I need to smoke a little, I need to do this, I need to do that. And now that I don't have what I thought was my supposed creative outlet, I can't be creative anymore. I mean, I used to think that.
Right.
And so how do you overcome that barrier of, because that's essentially a mental constriction you're putting, or a mental barrier you put up that isn't actually, I don't believe is actually true.
Right.
The creativity was still there. It didn't have anything to do with, though I may perceived that, a few drinks made me more creative, or a few, whatever you did, hits of the pipe or whatever made you more creative. The reality is the creativity was in you, not in the substance. So how do you re-engage with creativity when everything you've ever done was the opposite way? Because the creativity.
I'm just thinking of like, I feel like maybe there's more confidence in the creativity when you're using, because you have that fake confidence.
Yeah, it's like going to the bar. A couple drinks, I'm smooth. No, you sound like an idiot, but you think you're smooth.
Yeah, like when people are like, I drive better drunk. No, you don't. You think that you do because you're more confident, but your reaction time is slowed. So
how did you get over, did you have that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. There are still some things that I don't want to say I struggle to do creatively since being clean. There are some things that have lost their fire in me, like writing music, like writing raps and stuff like that. That's something I've gotten back into plenty of times in recovery, and I think not using has definitely made me better at that specific artistic form. And yet, like, I think in some ways I've still kind of like put that barrier on myself, though. You know what I mean? Like, because like when I was using, I did that more than anything artistically. But what I did was find another creative outlet, which was doing comedy. You know what I mean? And doing comedy was my way to just kind of like say, like, this is the thing I'm doing. Because what I struggled with in my addiction was just like extreme grandiosity, like a little bit to what Elise was talking about with that like fake confidence about creativity. So for me, like, where I'm at with this stuff is I'm trying to work on what does creativity look like for me, not just if I'm not using. I think I've gotten through that part, but also like, what does creativity look like for me if I'm just being creative for the sake of being creative, and it's not just this like grandiosity, like mind trip that like, you know, I'm only doing this because I think I'm the greatest and I'm gonna be the greatest and I'm heading somewhere to the top of the mountaintop. Because I think for me, like,
doing it out of enjoyment is what you mean.
Yeah,
You're doing it because for your own personal satisfaction, not because the applause or the accolades or.
And I'm struggling with that. I'm
struggling
with that. Because it's just finding the new motivation for it, just doing it for the sake of doing it, you know, and realizing when I got clean, like before I got clean, I thought I was owed, you know, the greatest accolades, you know, without doing any work for it. And then I got clean, and then I realized how much work you actually have to do to be great at something, and it's fucking terrifying.
It's get really good at it.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and I'm like, do I actually want to do that? Like, I don't know. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's the double-edged sword of like the addict reality of like, oh, you know, I did all the shit I was supposed to do last night. You know, I took care of my kids. I ate, I showered. You're supposed to, you dumb motherfucker.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Which most people, you're fucking supposed to do. You know, you don't get applause for normal shit.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it is like when you start doing creative things is like, I mean, where's the line? I don't know. But like, I think we all want validation from other people. Hey, that looks great. It's cool. You know, great for what you're supposed to be doing. But then where does self-validation and or other validation lie? Like, where's that line? Where's the difference in between the two? Because I spent most of my life searching out validation from other people as a way to reinforce my own sense of self-worth. If you say I'm good, then I must be. Yeah. Because I have zero way to validate that on my own.
Right.
You know, but is it all or one, or where's the middle ground?
That's another interesting thing about that. And I kind of found that with comedy at times where, you know, I think at its core, I've always wanted to do comedy because I love comedy. But there is the other component that's like, I want to do comedy because, like, of validation, you know. I think probably, like, unconsciously, you know, I'm certain. And, you know, growing up, you know, with a chaotic family unit and being what they call the mascot, you know, when they talk about those family roles, like, I was the mascot. I was the person who calmed it down with humor and things like that. And, you know, so kind of being in that place, you know, when I first tried comedy, it was like really nice, like in high school when I did improv, because it was like, oh my God, like I just made all these people laugh. That felt so good. That felt so validating. And then you get into recovery and I do all this work on myself, and all of a sudden I'm not actually craving that validation as much anymore. And so then where's the motivation then? I think I realized not pretty quickly, but I realized eventually, like, if I'm not motivated to be validated by a crowd of people, there's a part of me that doesn't even care to get up here and tell jokes, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
That's kind of where I'm at right now, I think, in some ways. Along with the depression part, but we're working on that.
So along with the depression part, so How motivated are you to get up and do comedy when you're depressed?
Zero. Yeah, and then I do this the extremes, man. I do the extremes, and I start walking around. I start telling everyone, like, no, I'm not doing comedy anymore, man. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I just decided that's not for me, you know? And then, like, once I feel better, I'm like, oh, like...
Wait, I like it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a pattern I'm starting to take a look at, for sure.
Okay, so looking... What were you going to say, Elise?
I connect with so much of that. I feel like with dance in recovery, like at first it was like learning how to do it without the substance, and I was super insecure. And I would like go to class, and then I would like cry my way home and be like, fuck this, I'm the worst, and then do it again anyways. And then I was getting better, and then like Elijah was saying, like there was less of that. I guess part of recovery for me is like getting more grounded in reality. And like in my addiction, I could literally not practice dance at all, but still like visualize myself famous on billboards.
Right.
And then like in recovery, I've realized like, oh, I have to commit a certain chunk of time every day for the rest of my life to be good at this thing. I may or may not be on that billboard, but that is what it's going to take. And then I was kind of forced with the choice of like, yeah, do I like this thing enough to put in that effort day in and day out? And that's kind of where I was stuck. And then more recently, I have been doing that with dance, and it has been going well. And the better I get, the more confidence I get. But I realize that something that I do is I decide what the future looks like before it happens. And this is a lot like where my depression comes from. I decide that doing something for a certain chunk of time every day is going to be boring, depressing, and hard. However, it isn't when I just fucking do it, which is the same with recovery for me. Like, I thought being clean every day, day in and day out, when I got into it, was going to be boring and difficult, and there was no way I was going to be able to do it, and did I even like this thing? And now here I am 6 years later, and my life is really interesting and fulfilling, and nothing like I thought it was going to be.
So a piece of this is that, I mean, my own recent correlation to this is, like, I used to run every day, because when I stopped doing construction and started doing what we do now, I didn't get any exercise, so I started realizing as I'm pushing 50, I got to get my ass up and do something, you know, if I want to remain healthy the way I wanted. So I started doing yoga and started running every day, you know, and then with last year getting out of the loop with my mom and a bunch of other shit that was going on. I mean, not using that as an excuse, it was all me, but, you know, I spent probably 6 months being like, I really need to do that. I really need to do that. And I had gotten so far out of it that the first couple days were just, it was always me having a conversation in my head about what I need to do.
Right.
Every day. Oh, you should go do that. But I'm not going to do it. You should go do that. Tomorrow. You know, tomorrow. And tomorrow that never fucking comes. Until I was sitting there one day, I was like, why don't you just get the fuck up and go outside the door?
Right.
Stand up, put your shoes up, walk out the door. See what happens from there. And I did, you know, and the first couple of days weren't running. It was just walking, you know. But walking to the end of my block, coming back. Next day walking further in the end of my block. Next day, fuck it, let's just 100 yards. Let's see if we can run 100 yards up this hill. And then I started creating these little paths to where now, over the course of 14 days, I've kind of gotten back into it.
Nice.
And what the first days were just so frickin' arduous. It was hard. Everything hurt. It was like, I keep in my head the gloriousness of when you've actually been doing it regularly.
Yeah.
How good you feel and how easy it is when you've been consistent in it. But when you haven't been consistent, it's getting over the hump. It's like yoga. Like, you go to this hot yoga class, And when you're consistent and you go regularly, it's way more palatable. It's still hard, but it's still way easier.
Right.
But the first times you come back, it's like it's so hard to get and it's so easy to lose.
Mm-hmm.
To getting back into it, it's excruciating the first couple weeks. But once you get over that hump, then my metabolism started to kick back in. And but you wouldn't think that running would give you energy. Mm-hmm. But the more I got into it, the more energy I had throughout the day.
Right.
And my lethargia, if that's even a word, being lethargic went away.
I like it.
Lethargia, I don't even know if that's a word, but all of that went away, and over time, doing more made me want to do more.
Right.
And just building that into it, and just it becoming the routine, and eliminating my story, because I know when I physically feel like shit, I mentally feel like shit. Mm. And so the depression corollary to this is when I'm not doing any of the shit I normally do, right. When my body is physically not happy, so is my mind.
Yeah. And
so getting back out and actually getting over the hump of just like, it's like when I would go to meetings, the first 5 minutes I'd be at a meeting, you don't need to be here. Right. If you look at me, I'll tell you what's going through my head. You don't need to be here. You've heard their bullshit before. You don't need to do it, blah, blah, blah. It's me talking myself into some reasons to not be there.
Right.
And then I finally came to, dude, you're going to fucking stay, so why don't you shut the fuck up and just take part? And, it's like when I don't want to get up and go run, you're going anyway, so just, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then getting to the place where, the journey's the reward, not some destination. Where you're doing stuff, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, no, go ahead, Elise.
No, I was just thinking of how those things tied in together, what you were saying, Elijah, about, what is my motivation now? And, what Mark was saying about, the progress builds on itself. If I can get myself into a routine of something, even if I'm not sure if I like it or not, but, I have to get into a routine of doing it if I'm going to find out, but, the motivation can come from the progress.
Yeah.
And an acceptance of the, what Brene Brown calls it embracing the suck, but just knowing, all right, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck for a couple weeks. Just accept that and just move through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going up to do comedy. I've never done comedy, but I'm assuming I do have a friend who tours pretty regularly. He's fairly well known in the comedy circles, but he's like, you got to get up there and just know you're gonna suck.
Yeah.
You're gonna bomb. That's just all there is to it. You just have to accept the fact you're gonna bomb, and you got to move through it. And you got to keep doing it.
Right. Yeah, and what we're talking about is making me realize how much of this conflict I have comes from my addictive mind, which is it's I'm an addict. I want the instant gratification. And this is something I'm really going to have to, I'm realizing as I'm talking to you guys, I'm going to have to do some steps on this. I'm going to have to do some therapy on this shit because I can see it, and that's, how I'm realizing, I really need to, push through this thing because I'll even tell you, I got a guitar recently and I spent a small chunk of time playing guitar and I spent a large chunk of time thinking about my future band's name, thinking about all the places we're gonna play music,
the glorious tour,
thinking about the tours and what and then I just stopped playing. I spent more time thinking about the future possibilities than actually playing guitar, and then I just stopped playing my guitar, and that was a nice fantasy dopamine rush. And I'm also realizing that a lot. I think I use fantasy like a drug. Truly. I use fantasy like a drug. And these are a lot of things that are coming up right now for me. And I'm just these are some things I'm going to have to get through. Because that instant gratification thing, that's not how it goes. And that's what we learn in our recovery, right? Because we're looking for instant gratification, that's what fucks us up. That's what kills us, Instant gratification kills us. But when we get into recovery, we realize through recovery that this is a process that's going to take time and it's not going to happen overnight. And, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, depending on the issue you're dealing with. And I know that, but I think it's funny, just with this, it's my neural pathways are so dense regarding fantasy and all these ideas. And not actual, because that's always how I've been too, you know what I mean? I've always been very, very intensely interested in something for a short period of time, not completing it, and then moving on to the next thing. You know what I mean? Just getting that quick fix.
That's the process of using. I mean, like,
Yeah.
most of us spent years, tomorrow I'm going to do this glorious thing.
Right.
Or I intend myself to do something different.
Right.
That never happened, and I spend so much time in the illusion of what could be. Because, fantasy and illusion's great.
Right.
In one capacity, because it absolves me of any responsibility to actually do anything. I don't have to put any work, and I can just live in this illusion that I create in my head of what could be. Right. For such a long period of time, that if I just keep the illusion alive, then I don't have to face the work. I don't have to do any of the other things that come with it. And it's just it's imaginary.
Yeah.
This
is fucking me up right now. This is good.
It's like procrastination. Procrastination's great.
Yes.
Because immediately it's like, I have all this shit to do tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
Woo! Instant stress relief. It's like using it. It feels great in the moment, but the long-term benefit of it, or the long-term pain of it, is all that shit stacks up and you never get any of it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're the only person I've heard talk about procrastination like that, and it's always stuck with me because it trips me out.
I'm a great procrastinator.
It's like that, and it's like, don't you love canceling a plan? You're just like, ooh, I'm gonna cancel this plan.
It's total freedom. Let me, my to-do list will come tomorrow, so the rest of my day I'm free. Until tomorrow's to-do list stacked on 20 other ones. What were you gonna say, Elise?
Like, yay, I'm free to sit in my own shit about what I just procrastinated about. I was thinking, when we get into that, snowball of the instant gratification, oh man, that turns nasty real quick for me, and I think the depression for me comes in when, on top of not doing those things, now I'm thinking about how I didn't do them, and I feel shitty about not doing them, and that makes me not want to do them, and that snowballs into the depression pretty quickly for me, because it's all these other feelings now of regret or guilt or lack of confidence or whatever. And I like what Elijah was saying about looking at it through a lens of step work, because I feel I for the last several months have felt depressed about things like this, but also I'd be I don't want to do this thing, whatever it is, so I do less of it, and that feels like shit. And then I'm I don't want to do that thing. And then I do less of it, and then I feel like shit. Then I'm doing almost nothing because I don't want to do anything because it's not satisfying. And then I realize that I'm just living in instant gratification. And then I hate everything. And then I'm wait, it's not dance because I don't want to go to work. I don't want to dance. I don't want to go to yoga. Now I'm even sick of Netflix. You know what I mean? There's nothing that I like. And so then I realize it's me. It's not the thing, it's me. And for me, the 10th step really, really has helped me to get out of that place, because the 10th step has been for me a lot about what shit do I need to do daily, even just try daily, in order to feel satisfied by the end of the day. And then when I feel satisfied, I'm more likely to do it again the next day. And then that consistency is man, that shit was all in my head. I really enjoy all of these things, and I'm actually okay. I just gotta do the things.
Well, in the depression and instant gratification corollary is so profound, because most of our life before, I feel whatever way you don't want to feel: depression, anxiety, loneliness, pain, shame, guilt, loss, whatever it is, whatever your thing is. So I use to not feel that. Now I'm in a position where I can't use, but I still feel a lot of that shit. So what can I use now that isn't, aka air quotes, using, but gives me the same instant gratification result? Ooh, let me go buy the 15th pair of Jordans that I don't need.
Right.
Or, let me rack up credit card debt. or let me go to the, gamble, or get in another toxic relationship, or, spend 19 hours at the gym a day as opposed to my job, or, nothing against any of these things, but when it's the goal of, how can you use without dope?
Right. And
fantasy.
Yeah, fantasy for sure, and that's why using is so elusive, man. Like during COVID, I blinked, and I was like addicted to video games again. Like it just happened so and I didn't realize it until I got into a relationship, and my girlfriend was like, "Dude, spend some time with me, go to bed with me, and it was it was even worse because it was oh yeah, growing up, those are the things my mom used to say to my dad, when he would stay up all night playing video games, and it was just such a eye-opener, but it's so elusive. To me, I'm just I'm just blowing off some steam for a little bit, whatever.
For 6 hours.
Yeah, for 6 hours, exactly. So I guess I'm just, the longer I stay clean, the more I am realizing how elusive my addiction is, you know what I mean? If just because I don't want to put narcotics or booze in my body, it'll find anything else. And we've gone through that 1,000 times, right? But that's why we keep going to the meeting, right? Even though we've heard it 1,000 times, it's because I need to hear it again, because I'll forget it very quickly. Yeah,
and I'll start junking out on things that, I have one mortgage, 2 should be really good.
Right.
Let me just start racking up anything I can do to get me out of me. I remember my old roommate, we were living together, and he was you brought up video games, and we had this office space with folding doors in the front, so we went in, and he was in there literally. I was so freaked out about it, and I was like, why? I was like, oh my god, it reminds me of smoking crack.
Right.
He was in there just for literally a week. He walked out one morning at 5 a.m. when I was getting up to go to work, and I looked at him like, dude, you have a beard. You've been in there so long, you grew a fucking beard. And it was all fucking, looked like somebody had been smoking crack for a week.
Right.
Just all geeked out. His eyes were fucking going different directions. You ever seen somebody who plays video games for a long time and you're all just fucking spun out by not looking at it? And he walked out and was like, you have a fucking beard, dude. Maybe you have it. And it freaked me out because it was so like my old life. I was just like, oh my god, is that what I used to look like? It was like, yes. But using anything outside of me to try to fix some shit inside of me, to try to, instead of dealing with the depression, there's a lot of creativity can be a great antidote to depression if you can get up and actually, I know I can just hear that everybody out there saying, oh yeah, right, fuckhead, I'm depressed, go be creative, right? It's that easy. But it's not that easy, because you take a step in a direction to where maybe I could just get up, walk outside under that big yellow thing in the sky, and get some sun on my face. Could I go for a walk to the end of the block? Could I, take my dog out of the house for a while? You ever notice when you're depressed what your house looks like? Your fucking dishes are stacked up like Dr. Seuss all over the place. Your laundry hasn't been done in a month. Everything is messy and chaotic and gross. What if you just cleaned your bathroom?
Right.
What if you just did the dishes a little bit? What if you could just take one small baby step at improving your environment just a little bit? Even if it's just 3 square feet of a room. Can you clean just that corner of one room? You can feel a little bit of accomplishment, a little bit better. And then, all right, so today that was your thing. Cool. Fantastic. You made a step in the right direction. But that on itself is kind of how I used to smoke 3 packs a day, and I've smoked everything you could light on fire for 30 fucking years. Running was not a reality of my life. But now that, I'll go out and do 4 miles a day, 2 out and 2 back.
Yeah.
But it didn't start out with I'm going to go run a marathon. That's what you think. I'm going to do the marathon. I can't run no fucking marathon. But I could walk to the end of the block. And then I came back, and the next day I could go 2 houses past the end of the block. And the next day 5 houses, 20 houses, 3 more blocks, whatever, and just keep building on itself. And then one day I got the idea, what would it feel like if I ran to that tree? And it was 50 feet away.
Right.
And I fucking ran to the tree. I thought my lung was going to fall out.
Yeah.
But I kept going. And the next day I was like, I'm going to run to that tree plus 10 feet. And all of those incremental spaces kept getting longer and longer and longer. To where eventually it was like 80% running and 20% walking.
Right.
And I'm cool with that. Because it's gotten me to a place where I actually feel better about that.
Yeah.
So like, to me, my version of depression, I'll only speak for myself, has gotten better by small baby incremental steps of doing something I don't want to do. Making my bed. Get up in the morning every day. You know, like if you come to my house and my bed isn't made, there's probably been something catastrophic happening. Because I'm just rigid about it. Because I love that. There's a whole YouTube thing from this military guy about making your bed, start your day.
I think I've seen that.
But it works. It's just like, what one thing can you do to pick that can make your day a little bit better?
Right.
You know, what...
Yeah, and I feel like... Sorry.
No, go for it.
I feel like there's like, you know, like science that like supports that too.
Right.
You know, like when you have a goal, your brain is like firing dopamine. And then when you accomplish the goal, that like satisfaction is the serotonin. And practically every substance there is to use gave us both of those things. But that's like the problem with the instant gratification, right? If I can do something fast that produces that shit, it's also gonna burn out fast, and then like I'm stuck, and it's never enough. But like when I do things that take hard work to get those things naturally, it's like a normal, steady flow. There's no like burnout. There's no like crash. You know, it's just like it's sustainable. You know, and like I realized that like that is the way the world works. Like that is how reality works. Is that like true satisfaction really only comes from hard work, no matter what the thing is. But like also when I do it and I feel that satisfaction, it's so much better. Like it's so much better than using. Like it's truly satisfying.
Right.
You know, and then I want to do it some more.
Yeah, it reminded me, now everybody do your own homework on the science of this, but I remember hearing that there's only a couple other substances other than the human body that produce serotonin. One of them's blow and chocolate. Fine, do your own research on this. I'm not trying to say that's actually, but it's what I heard.
Yeah.
But it made so much sense. Like for everybody who's done coke out there, you'll understand these next. If you've done it enough that you notice this pattern, obviously that should be something telling in yourself. Is like I would do blow for a couple days, and then so basically if I'm supplementing my serotonin system with an outside source, my internal one turned off, so I wasn't doing it naturally. The next day, I'd be all sad and remorseful. The day after that, I'm super pissed off. Well, the first day you sleep. The second day you're remorseful. The third day you're just an asshole.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Everybody who's done blow can identify that probably. Yeah. If you can't, well, open your eyes. That's probably what's happening.
Right.
Because your serotonin system turns off. So once it's gone, the supplemental version's gone, then it takes a while for my own systems to turn back on, and that's when I'm depressed, and that's when I'm an asshole, and then it starts to come back online, and then I go back to normal until I start doing blow again.
Right.
And it's just was this super consistent, rapid, fact of how it's doing. So weird little caveat, something I remembered from a long while ago. But so how can you start? Like, what do you do to make the small? Like, I know what we're talking about is great in theory.
Yeah.
But how do you actually make this a practice? If somebody's sitting here right now, it is super. And now, I want to be clear that it's just three people speaking from their own experience.
Right.
Not psychologists, not talking about clinical depression, not talking about medications, not talking about anything. But is there something from your experience only that you could do that helped you? Like for me, it was literally, because I've gone through bouts of really long depression in my life. And the things that were helpful to me just in small form that I could actually, and it was forceful to have to do, was get up and go outside. I mean, the one part about New Mexico that I love is it's sunny 320 days a year here. Getting out, one thing to do, even if it was just go out to the mailbox and get some sun on your face, that was super helpful to me, but also super hard. So what's something you've done that kind of helped you get over that first initial hump?
Yeah, I like what you're saying about just choosing something small. Because if once I do that and I feel a little bit better, I know that it will snowball in a positive direction. Like when I remember when I was learning about like how like the change process works for people, and that like once you make one healthy change, the second one is easier. Once you've made two healthy changes, the third one's easier than that, and it just goes from there. And that gave me a lot of hope, that I was like, all right, if I can start with one thing, maybe the rest will fall into place. Maybe the rest will like snowball, right? And so like, let's say in recovery, right, that was just like, let me just show up to a meeting, and then that all snowballed. But like today, for me, that looks like, I'd say like, I was like, let's just try to wake up at this like certain time, and let's make that a goal for like just the week, and we'll see how it goes. Like I kind of gave myself like, if you don't like it, that's fine. We can change it again, like nothing's permanent. But let's just try this like hour earlier than usual, and like see how it will affect me. And a lot of those ideas for me come from being around other people, and that's what I get from meetings. So it's like hearing other people, like hearing you guys say what your solutions were. I can be like, maybe I'll try that thing and see what that does for me. And so like when I talk to someone who's an early morning person and they have so much peace and serenity and everything's like flowing in their life, I'm like, maybe that's something that maybe I could try that, and that's creativity to me. It's just trying a thing that's different than usual.
I mean, it's super important too. I mean, you made a really good point of like, I think a first step could just be some trying to find willingness to at least look. To at least, is there something there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because the hard part of depression for me is I didn't even look.
Right.
I got so deep in the mud of just the feeling that I was in that I just stopped trying to seek any kind of possibility. Right. I mean, there's no simple solution to this. I'm not trying to say by any means there is.
Right.
But what you were just talking about is seeing, if that's what that person's doing, maybe, wow, he's doing that. Could I do that? That person's doing something different. And just that willingness to just start looking, to start seeking out a solution can be important. How did you get over the first hump of that initial, or
you were
happy, or what's your thoughts?
What I really like is, I don't know, scheduling is big for me. Like, I have to do scheduling. Yeah. I have to set alarms. I have to put stuff in my calendar. I have to really, like, it really helps me. And my simple one right now is just, like, because excuse me, I will, like, just eat out a lot. You know what I mean? And, like, I'm really trying to focus on making my own lunch. You know what I mean? But, like, if I'm not feeling super great, like, I will just blow it off, and then I'll go to work the next day, and then I'll go eat out fast food, and it just kind of becomes a cycle. So my big thing is literally just setting an alarm to make my lunch at night.
That's a huge... schedule and routine matters a lot. Like, because when I remember being, there was a long time during COVID when, remember when COVID first happened? I mean, and this is not a comment towards all of the people that lost. I mean, I lost people in that. I'm not talking about that, but when the society closed down as a whole, at first, it was kind of like, wow, I don't have to do shit. Yeah. This is kind of weird and kind of almost, I don't know if I could say enjoyable, but it kind of seemed like summer vacation out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But then over time, I started getting super depressed. And I started getting super in my head. And I started like, I don't have to do any of this shit. You know, and I talked to another friend at that time, and I think we talked about this a couple podcasts ago, but, you know, like, when I'm alone and I'm isolated, I'm not doing any of the things that got me to where I am, why am I not surprised that nothing's working anymore? Because I wasn't doing shit.
Right.
And I talked to a friend who was in Denver at the time, and she wasn't doing shit, so we created a little bit of accountability to each other, partnership where we kind of called each other every day and held each other accountable to doing some shit.
Right.
You know? Because, like, when it's just me talking myself into what I'm going to do, I'll blow myself off. But when I know that somebody else is going to call me and I have to give them an answer that's honest and true, oh shit. I don't want to lie to them because that's not who I want to be anymore, so I better get up and do some shit.
Right.
You know, and it was actually pretty helpful. You know, it wasn't everything, but it definitely helped, you know, having some accountability to a schedule or to a person or to, you know, an outcome you're trying to create. You know, it's what you were talking about with dance. Like, you don't just, you know, I think a lot of people now see somebody on YouTube or Instagram or whatever their thing is, I want to be that. And they see the destination, but they forget all the, you know, long work that took that person to get to there. You know, or like the overnight success that took a decade.
Right.
You know, from the perspective of the people that were actually doing the work. You know, the band that just came out of nowhere.
Right.
You know.
And I think that's where kind of like, for me, that's where like the mindfulness has to come into play. Like Elijah was saying, doing things just to do things, like not trying to get through things and speed through things and just get this thing out of the way, and like that's exhausting, and then I don't want to do it. But like if I can just be like, this, like, I'm in reality right now, and it's like, it's okay, the roof is not falling in, you know, I have my basic needs met, like, can I just like feel what this feels like to do this thing right now, and I'm just worried about that, and that's it. And that really helps me to just like, and then things actually go by faster when you do that, ironically.
Totally.
You know,
kind of right size, and I'm not saying don't dream big by any means.
Right.
I love the idea of dreaming way beyond. You know, set the bar super high. But how do you make the journey you're on? How do you make the day-to-day the reward and not the destination the reward?
Right.
Like, I do a lot of yoga, and when I started, I sucked compared to everybody else. Like, bad. Like, really bad. Like, I couldn't even touch my fucking toes. But once I kept going, every month I started noticing over time, my goal ended up being, can I do one thing this month I couldn't do the month before?
Right.
And that doesn't seem like a lot. But that, over time, it made like, oh, cool. A little bit better at this. And the journey itself that you were on became the reward and not just some metaphorical destination I was trying to get to.
Right, because if I use the destination as the standard, then of course I'm going to be depressed, because I'm going to, if I'm setting the bar that high, but I'm only thinking about how high the bar is, then I'm going to be terrified.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just be like, you know, well, I'll never get there anyways, so what's the point? No, you dream big, but like you said, the journey is what matters.
Totally.
Expectation is a bitch.
Well, I mean, and I know we gotta close, but I mean, another part was I started comparing me to me and not to everybody else.
There it is.
And it's so, it's so easy to get in paralysis when I'm comparing myself to them.
Yeah. As
opposed to comparing myself to who was I yesterday.
Right.
Am I a little bit better today than I was yesterday? If I did, cool, that's a win to me. But it means that I can always raise the bar in my own life to get better and better. So thanks, you guys. I really appreciate this. I mean, kind of wrapping up the things that we talked about, taking one little baby step in a direction, no matter how small it is, or even open the ideas to the possibility of a baby step. Can I do something? Utilizing your version of creativity as a path to, combating depression or, anything that you're going through, the physical side of my body, and sometimes just getting out in the sun and doing things. So Appreciate what you guys had to say today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Good.
See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All information and other content supplied or communicated in or through this video is for general informational purposes only and does not or nor is intended to constitute legal or medical advice. Any viewer of this video should contact his or her own attorney, doctor, or other applicable advisor or practitioner to obtain legal, medical, or other applicable advice with respect to the accuracy, reliability, or potential application to such viewer of any matter discussed or portrayed in this video. Please do not act or refrain from acting in any way based on any information or content supplied or communicated in or through this video. The views expressed during this video are those of the individual presenters only and not those of Choice Recovery Path LLC or any of its customers, suppliers, or affiliates. Any liability with respect to actions taken or not taken by any viewer based on any information or content supplied or communicated in or through such video is hereby expressly disclaimed. All such information or content is expressly provided as is and free of any representation or warranty of any kind.